Hey there, Danielle Matthews here. I'm coming to you live from Florida. It's Monday, so it's book club day. And we are kicking off chapter 9, Loyalty to Your Soul. We are on chapter 9. And this chapter is called Self-Forgiveness, the Royal Road to Freedom. Forgiveness, they kind of talk about as not what you typically think as forgiveness. That'll kind of be the second half of chapter 9. This first half I thought was really beautiful. It's talking about our ego mind, this thing that is chattering away, right? That inner roommate that never stops. It's dialogue. It's talking about it, and it's talking about, like, why do we have one? And also, what is it doing that is helpful, and how is maybe its chatter not so helpful? And how to transcend it, all right? What we need to do in order to let go of it all. And it's powerful. I actually really enjoyed this portion of this book. So he kind of kicks off talking about how he was in meditation one day and he was asking his soul, like, who are you? Right? Who are you? Hey, Charlotte, good to see you. Glad you're here. And his soul responded with a short statement. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this. When the difference between fear and intuition, right? Touching your higher self and just hearing, like, your ego mind's fear kicking around. If it is a question that comes through, like you're questioning, did I make the right decision? Is this the right thing to do? La, 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 la. That's fear. That's not your intuition. Your intuition, your higher self, when you're connecting with that, it's usually short statements, okay? And so the short statement he got back was, I am a ghost bound to a very small world. And I just loved that. Because isn't that so true? They say we are, spirits having a human experience. And it's this ghost that's bound to this small world. And how perfectly said small world, because our ego literally just sees through this tiny hole. And even just Earth is a small portion of what is out there in the universe. And so he says, we aren't totally asleep. It's both our commission and our destiny to more fully awaken and, like the prodigal son, eventually return home. So the whole point, right, in what I teach in Inner Mastery, we talk about this, like the point of the soul's journey is self-actualization, or self-realization. And like a dog can't become self-realized. Like my dog is laying back here. And my dog is completely aligned with source, with instinct, through instinct, biologically. But there is no separate part, okay, that can learn of its own nature. We as humans have that separate part. We have the ego mind. And the ego mind is what actually allows us. It's the thing that disconnects us from our instinctive source nature. It disconnects us, but it's also the thing that, because it's disconnected, because it's separate, it can then turn around and go, wait, there's something here, and it can experience itself. It's like the ocean experiencing itself as the wave. All right, it's individuated, but it's also part of the whole. And that's what it's talking about here, and that's why we need an ego. It's important to have it. If you didn't have it, you would never be able to do this. And that's why we're not fully asleep. Like there's a part of us that knows there's something more, there's something bigger here. And our job is to wake up, right? They talk about the prodigal son of God, right? The prodigal son of God squanders the wealth of God until it realizes, and it comes home and it goes, wow, I didn't know. And now I know. So the question is, what does leaving this very small world and returning home look like? That's kind of what he puts up there at the beginning. And he shares this story about this man that was over, I forget where he was. Was it Thailand? Where was it? India. I think maybe it was in India. And anyway, Far East. And Gandhi had come to his town, and he was in line to talk to Gandhi. And the whole time he's in line, he's just like fuming. He's angry about all the things that the government is doing wrong, and he's just going to give it to Gandhi when it gets to the front of the line. And he gets to the front of the line, and he says he completely fell to his knees sobbing because he experienced the love that was pouring and flooding through Gandhi. And he said all of a sudden his anger drained, and instantaneously he was placed in this exquisite piece of divine love. And that's how... That's the experience that the soul is looking for. That is a self-realized state when you can access this love that's here all the time. It's like all of a sudden realizing I don't have to be the weather. I can be the sky. And I can just be the space in which it is all passing, which is love, which is unconditional, non-judgmental, all-allowing, that kind of love. And he says, so what does this look like to surrender? This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. It's going from, I meant to bring it over here. Like if you had a yin-yang, right? And it has the black and the white part. That's polarity. That's the world we live in this world of form. That's where our ego lives. And our ego gets us in trouble because it starts to choose. I like black, I don't like white. I like good, I don't like bad. I like night, I don't like day. I like sunshine, I don't like rain. Whatever. It's having preference. And when it has preference, you're in duality. And you can never find peace. But if you can come back and see that, yeah, there are two things, but they make up one whole. And coming to this whole, dropping judgment, that is what allows you to feel this unified peace. It's beautiful. He says the process that this man experienced was the letting go of his anger, frustration, rage, and the right-wrong agenda, right? I think that yin-yang is the beautiful example. All of which have resulted in years of emotional disturbance and suffering. He released his judgments in one glorious moment of surrender and found himself at home in the peace of God, where he resided for the remainder of his life. That is what happens when you go into unity. This is what in this book they call forgiveness. This is what they're calling the release of judgment. This is where you stop having the preference between the polarities that exist in this world and you just accept it all and you realize everything is here for a reason and one serves the other. We don't know love without knowing hate. We don't appreciate life without knowing death. All of it is there. You have to have it all. He says every time you release a judgment, you take one of these rocks out of your backpack. Every time you stop living in duality, life gets a little easier. The emotional internal suffering you're doing starts to go away. All right, I love this quote that was shared on page 167. He wrote, I know what the great cure is. It is to give up, to relinquish, to surrender, so that our little hearts may beat in unison the great heart of the world. And I saw that as, if you think about waves on an ocean, it's like realizing the waves, meaning like realizing that, oh, I'm connected to something deeper. It's like when you go to the bottom of the ocean, it's so still. But if you're up there in the waves, it's choppy and it's crazy and it feels chaotic. But if you can connect in with that still center that's beneath it all, that's the key. And that's what we have. That's like what we're here to do and figure out. And when you figured it out and when you felt it, it's amazing. Now, most people don't go through what this guy went through in front of Gandhi, where all of a sudden it's all released and he's living in that space. But I can tell you, I've gotten there through meditation, sometimes through a couple of different experiences and practices, yoga therapy for sure, yoga nidra. And it's not my mind's idea of this space. It's nothing that my mind can conceive. My mind is literally non-existent and quiet. And you experience life from a profound, there's no words for it. It's love, it's peace, it's joy, it's all of these things. And everything is beautiful. Like just utterly beautiful. And you can get there. You can certainly get there. That's what I teach and what I help people to do. So he writes, what might this guy have meant about the one heart beating with the greater heart, right? That's the wave becoming the ocean, in my view. That's our individuation, realizing, no, I'm part of one consciousness. We're all part of the same thing. He says, what is this process of surrendering and how can it work? How does one move into and through the portal of forgiveness, going from duality to one? How can you go home and reside in unconditional love, peace, and joy of your true nature? For us, these are life's most important questions. And maybe they were questions that you had. But he writes on page 168, and he has these diagrams about what this journey looks like. So I'll read it a little bit. And then if you've got questions, put them in the chat, because this is really it's heavy stuff. But I think it makes sense. So in this figure, it's the negativity and then positivity. This is essentially, I think a better picture is the yin yang and pulling it into duality. But anyway, this is what they use. He says, in this figure, you can see the duality of the ego's reactions to events in their very small world, in this physical reality. As we've explained earlier, when things go the way you believe they should go, you deem them right or good and have a positive emotional reaction. You then make choices and behave in harmony with that conditioned pattern. When things aren't as you think they should be, you proclaim them wrong or bad, and then you enter into the judgmental model of, I'm upset because. That's laced with negative emotional reactions, unclear choices, and imbalanced behavior. This is the duality that's a problem. He says, regardless of whether you're having a positive or negative side of the duality is being referenced, you're still operating from the framework of duality. You're still having preference. Even if you're preferring the good and you're experiencing the good, you haven't transcended. You're not experiencing this unconditional loving presence. You're just not. Hey, Doug, good to see you. Okay. He says, currently, this way of perceiving and behaving in the world is how the vast majority of people go through life. It's just the truth. And since negative beliefs far outweigh positive ones, most people struggle through life unconsciously walking the painful path of judgment and emotional suffering. Does this sound familiar? My teacher always says this is a dummy ego. We have this stupid ego that is causing its own suffering because it's choosing, because it's having preference. And until you realize that just to drop the preference, you're going to continue to struggle. That's the truth of it. And then he has this other. So he's got the negative and the positive, right? This duality. And then there's this triangle on top that says evolve. And this is what we're doing. This is the spiritual evolution. This is the self-realization that I'm talking about. He says waking up spiritually means becoming more and more aware that in addition to this horizontal dimension in the physical world of what we like and don't like, there's an enormous vertical dimension of spiritual reality that you're also traveling along. And it's this upward journey that's the soul's learning line. And everyone's purpose is coming to Earth School to move up this learning line. This is what we are trying to do. He says, as this process continues, you're going to find yourself becoming more and more accepting, more and more peaceful. Eventually, we'll reach a point where apparent dualities dissolve, as well as the tension that existed between them. Here, you reside in a state of acceptance. You are in peace. It's the altitude of spiritual awareness that changes your perspective, which in turn transforms everything and alters the way you see the world. It is like becoming the sky rather than getting caught up in all of the weather that's going through it. You know, my teacher yesterday, I was with him, and he has this little machine. I don't know what it's called. He got it from, I feel like, Russia. And you touch it, and it measures like your inner peace. Okay? And when he touches it, it's at 1. And we were in this big discussion, we were sharing ideas, and there was excitement and blah, 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 and it's at 1. And he says, Danielle, you touch it. So I touch it, it's at 75. And he said, this is the difference. He has learned how to live as the sky. He's learned to do it. I haven't. I'm trying. I'm ascending to that direction, but I still have work to do. That my inner state of what I prefer and what I want to have happen and all of these things still have a grip. They have a hold. And so I am not in this complete space of unity and love. It doesn't exist. Okay? And it doesn't exist. It exists for me from time to time. It doesn't exist for me constant. For him, he's constantly there. And it's amazing to watch. It is amazing to be around someone that's been able to access that and to see them in many, many, many situations, and for that not to change. For even for the mind to arise and immediately he drops it back down. Because he's realized nothing is worth my peace. Nothing is worth giving this internal feeling. Because once you're in that internal feeling of just complete love and joy, you never want to lose it. You're how do I get back there? That's all you want to do is get back there. All right? So it's possible. It's possible for all you. I've watched it with him. He says, said another way, as you ascend, conflict dissipates and peace is present. You experience the all-encompassing love that's the substratum of all existence and which lies beneath all apparent dualities. When you have polarity, when you have a yin-yang, guys, that circle that encompasses them both, that's always there. It's just that we're looking at the white and black. We're not seeing the wholeness. We're not seeing the unity. If you flip it over, right, and all you see is one circle that's the same color, then you can see the unity. And that's what they're saying. You can start to experience that you're the sky all of the time. You can access this love that's always around us. You've never been left alone. You've never not been surrounded by love. We are just existing in a soup of love. That is what we are. That is what is all around us. And we miss it. I find it when I go into nature, I feel it. It brings me back there and I go, yeah, this is it. This is totally it. But we so easily get distracted by this world of form. We so easily do. Okay. He says there will be a time when as a species, we will arrive at a level of evolution such that it will be obvious and accepted that much more is to be gained by working together than by fighting. Eventually we'll realize that when we go at war and we hurt you, it hurts us. And so there's no point in warring. But we're kind of like the kid that's young and is running out into the street because they don't realize that a car could hit them. It's like my dog. He runs out into the street, totally oblivious to the fact that a car can hit him. Sometimes he jumps and barks at the cars, totally oblivious to the fact that the car can hurt him. And it's that's where we are with our consciousness as a species. We have not realized, we are oblivious to the fact that when I hurt you, it hurts me. And that things would be way better if we consciously worked together to figure out what is best for both. because we are one. We're all waves, but of the same ocean. Making sense? Just put a 5 in the chat. Five if you're with me. We're on page 171 now, where he talks about what's the point of the ego, which is where I kicked everything off today. Questions like, and maybe you've asked this, like, why do I even have an ego? Why do I have an aspect of my consciousness that creates so much suffering? Like, once you start to realize what's creating the suffering in your life, you're like, why the heck does this thing even exist? And aside from stuffing my backpack full of rocks, what is its actual role? And of course, the answer is the ego has a spiritual purpose. It's what I told you at the beginning. Without becoming separate, you're never going to be able to identify yourself. You can never become self-realized. You cannot become consciously aware of the truth of who you are. A dog can never become enlightened, but a human can. A dog is living in biological unity with instinct, with nature, with source, but it doesn't realize that it is. We can move away from it, only to then move back. It's like the prodigal son of God, squandering the wealth of God and then realizing and coming back home and going, oops, it's that realization, okay? Lucis, as a nation, we take one step forward and 2 steps back in that evolution. And she gets into this, or he gets into this, and saying, like, who's to say where we are as a society right now? Because we are transcending up in evolution, in conscious awareness, and everything that's happening is exactly what our society needs. Right? I know in the U.S. right now, all stuff's happening in Minnesota, from ICE to fraud to all these things going on. Like, well, all of these things occurring and coming to light is forcing everyone to shift, and it's part of our conscious evolution. It's part of it. And who's to say it's good or bad? It's not good or bad. That would be biting into duality. That would be the egos. Well, it should be this way. It ought to be that way. It could have been that way. No, this is all happening for a purpose, for a larger purpose, a purpose that we do not understand, because our mind and our global understanding is not large enough. But as a species, we are evolving consciously, and we have to go through things that do. And is it not true, just in your individual experience, that the harder things that you go through caused more awareness, caused more compassion, caused more awakening for yourself? And had you not gone through the difficulties, you wouldn't have had them. And so as a society, as a nation, we are going through things that are pushing us, that are challenging. Why? Because we need to awaken. You have to go through the bad. It's part of our learning. Exactly, Charlotte. It's part of our learning. It's part of our learning as a society. Because as the macro is the micro, right? In the microcosm of us is reflected in the macrocosm of society. We're seeing the ego playing out at a societal level. And the way you fix it is individual conscious evolution. And as individuals rise and we start to hold a higher frequency and we start to not interact with egos in the same way of others, all of a sudden that is what shifts it. It is a one by one thing, and collectively more people are being pushed and shaken because the external is getting so uncomfortable and is making them ask bigger questions. That's what's happening. And so it's not good or bad, it just is. And it is part of evolution of our consciousness. Okay. What did he say here? Oh, I'm on page 172. Everything is simply opening up into more evolved state, much like the bud opens into the fullness of a rose. You cannot force people to consciously evolve. Like, there's a tree out here, has beautiful buds I see on it. And like, I accidentally knocked one off and the bud fell down, and I thought, man, darn it, because I can't make that bud become a flower. I can't force it open. It opens bit by bit with the light every day until after weeks it becomes a beautiful flower. It's the same that's happening with all of us. You cannot force someone to spiritually evolve their consciousness. You can't. It's a process, and they have to go through every bit of that process as they open. You cannot force a process onto someone. They have to learn. It's like you can't force a kid to walk. It has to fall a bazillion times to gain the strength to understand, to eventually walk. Okay? We must be willing to give people the dignity of their process. We have to let people go through their process, to give them the space to learn through their own experiences. We need to let the kid fall. We need to let people evolve. And he says, to be true to your authentic self means that you choose to reside in the consciousness of acceptance from the altitude that you allow people the dignity of their process. When you start to realize, like, so many people are upset right now. I mean, there's always stuff to be upset about on the news. Like, have you realized this or not? Like, every day you could be indignant about something that has occurred. There is injustice happening, right? But that injustice is a judgment of the ego mind. well, it should have been this way, it could have been that way, that person didn't have to die, this person should have been saved, it should be this way, we should be kinder, blah, 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 blah. That is the ego. Are you with me? That's the ego. Who is to say that someone's death isn't the best thing, that soul had finished its curriculum and now it's on to its next part of its evolution? Who's to say? I'm not to say. You're certainly not to say. You don't know. We don't know. We don't know the will, the spiritual perspective. We don't know the spiritual curriculum. We can't know. All we can figure out is our own. That's all we're looking to do, and you figure out your own by figuring out what you're triggered by. So if you're triggered by things that are happening right now in the external world, that's your work. Go figure out what it is and work on that, okay? This was a good summary on page 173, and then any questions, put them in the chat. He says, let's be clear. As long as you are primarily ego-referenced, your belief system emanates from the perspective that experiences in life are to be judged on the basis of what happened in the physical world reality, right? What's happening in Minnesota right now. We should judge it. What we're talking about in this book, what I'm trying to get you guys to see, what I'm raising, what I'm making you look up at is, we're talking about is the difference between an ego-referenced belief system and a life within the context of your authentic self. Said another way, it's the difference between fool's gold of the ego's promise versus true gold of waking up into spiritual reality and seeing through soul-centered eyes. When you have a different perspective, it says you ascend to a different perspective. It doesn't make you better than anybody else. It just means you've had an evolution of awareness. Your conscious level of awareness has shifted, and now you have a different lens on things. Now you can see things differently. Now you don't see, you see that, it's two parts of one whole, right? We need death to appreciate life. We need someone taking our rights and liberties in order to appreciate our rights and liberties. Yes or no? You need both. You have to have both. And so when things are happening that you're uncomfortable with, you're in your ego mind. You're looking at a reference point of the world from what is right and wrong, what is good and bad. That doesn't exist. You need to pull back and go, no, it all has its purpose. And so you need to figure out for yourself, all you can do is take care of yourself individually and look at, where am I being triggered? Where am I giving away my own peace? What am I resisting? Come back and accept it. And we're not saying don't take action. We're not saying don't, do what is morally correct for another. It's like you need to just figure out, okay, how can I be accepting, keep my inner peace, and then act in the world in accordance with what I think needs to happen. And then surrender because you have no control of the results. All right, this is the spiritual path. Questions? It's a beautiful path, but it can be a little confusing on like, wait, am I just supposed to sit and meditate all day? No, you're not. Absolutely not. All right. All right, the next part of this, oops, I'm losing battery. The next part of this is about forgiveness. And, before we get to that, they do the number 20 principle. So the 20th principle of spiritual psychology. Healing is the application of loving to the places inside that hurt. He says, it is love that dispels judgment and heals the painful illusion of separation. And it is love that allows us to awaken. At this point, we're ready for the most powerful principle of all. Healing is the application of loving to the places inside that hurt. Healing is merely experiencing of letting go. All right, which they talk about as another way of referencing forgiveness. Okay, so forgiveness, they kind of get into like traditional forgiveness is like our mind saying, well, I know you did a bad thing, but I'm a bigger person and I'm going to forgive you. Sorry, that's still ego. That's still wrong, right? It's subtle, but it's in there. That's not true forgiveness. True forgiveness is accomplished by surrendering judgment and transcending the right-wrong level. It's realizing this is all an illusion. I'm a soul having a human experience. There's nothing to forgive. You were doing what your soul needed for its evolution. I'm experiencing it in the way I'm experiencing it for my own evolution. There is no reason to forgive you. You've taught me something. I should be thanking you, really. I should have gratitude for the realizations that you're giving me, right? I've always said your trigger is your teacher. And that is why, really, there's no reason to forgive. You don't have to forgive anybody. It's all an illusion. Are you with me? Like, forgiveness is egocentric. It is egocentric. People think it's the right thing to do. I mean, yes, it's moving you in the right direction, but you're still in this model of right-wrong. We're saying transcend the model. We're saying there is nothing but your spiritual evolution that really is what's of utmost importance. Okay? You don't know your spiritual purpose absolutely. On page 177, I'm done here. He says, because you don't know spiritual purpose absolutely, isn't it obvious that you're making up these rules based mostly on nothing other than what your ego has come to believe is the way life should be? So the truth of saying, well, this is right and this is wrong, it's like, well, that's your ego saying that. When you forgive anyone, including yourself, for doing things that you define as bad or wrong, you run the risk of subtly reinforcing the judgments that you're trying to stop. Okay? Now, the rest of the chapter gets into forgiveness and what soul-centered forgiveness looks like, so I'm just going to stop here. We're going to read through page 188 for next week, and it might be worth reading just this whole chapter all over again. It's a powerful chapter, guys. All right, I appreciate you guys being here. It's always fun to hang out with you on Mondays, and share this with somebody if you think it would benefit them. I'll get it up on YouTube, and I'll talk with you guys next week. Bye.